Good evening. I always wanted to say that ever since I've been good morning, good evening. I don't know, it just has this funny sound to it. Wow. 40 years. 40 years of convincing people that they don't look stupid up here. That is remarkable. And I remember my first days as a Toastmaster. I was so proud. I finished my icebreaker. And just a few days after that, because I was an executive in a cruise line, I was asked by a Rotary Club to give a keynote speech during lunchtime. Well, I thought, I gave my icebreaker. I am so ready. Let's go. So I started into my speech, and 5 minutes into it, I was just warming up. I was getting my introduction down, and I noticed that the noise level in the room was rising. People were talking among themselves, and they were clattering the dishes or doing all that. So I leaned over to the master of ceremonies and I said, I can hardly hear myself speak. She leaned over and said, don't worry, you're not missing anything. That's when I realized I needed to finish that basic manual. So I worked so hard. I celebrated every speech. I celebrated every manual, table topics, evaluation. I celebrated everything because I found out that celebrating, like we are tonight, is so much fun. Think of the things that we celebrate. Birthdays, holidays, birthdays, all that stuff. The first kiss, wedding bliss. Oh, we love to celebrate everything. And the other things that we do, those things make us stand up and holler. But the things that we also quietly celebrate are the things I call the serendipity of life. That coincidental chain of happy circumstances that give us such delight and surprise as we go through our lives together. I experienced one of these serendipity things the other day when I was in the grocery store, waiting in a long line, and boom, a register opened up right in front of me. That's serendipity. That's something to celebrate. Serendipity also occurs when you see the love of your life for the first time enter a room. Oh, and then feel the same way 27 years later. I know. Point the bank. But celebrations are unusual to me. They're so special. And I'm going through one right now, one of these serendipitous moments, when recently my long-lost son, Travis, I say long lost because I hadn't spoken to him, I hadn't communicated with him, I hadn't reached out to him in over 20 years. And one day, recently, he called me out of the blue. Hello, Dad. Since then, we've been reveling in all our experiences, our lives, our families, our children. And it occurred to me how precious families and friends really are, and how quickly time can pass. My speech at the international contest was called Boom, because that's the sound doors make when it's too late to reach out to someone who maybe has drifted out of your life, as I had let Travis do so many years ago, and yet here we were. So Susie and I had two newly found grandchildren, Dominic, who is 7, and Genevieve, baby G, who's 2. We flew out to see them recently, and of course, baby G is acting like a 2-year-old, just getting all over, like a little bug every place. But Dominic was the more cerebral one. He was the thinker. And I remember him pulling Genevieve aside and saying, now, baby G, we must respect our elderlies. That was me he was talking about. And later on, we're leafing through the family album. He points to a wedding picture of his mom and dad and said, this is the day Mommy came to work for us. Mommy didn't appreciate that, but the sentiment was there. So I thought about all those years I had lost. So what? So what? It's all the years we have in front of us that are important. And as you look at each other, some of us have been with Gelfand for a long time. some of you just joining, so many years ahead of us. That's the important thing. That sometimes these celebration moments are about jumping up and down and hollering and having a great time, but not all of them. Sometimes all about goosebumps and little quiet feelings, like when your love walks into a room. But celebrations can be tricky, can't they? I grew up in a household with 2 brothers and a sister, and we used to delight whenever misfortune befell one of us. So we would just rub it in. Now, I was good at that, but Sam, my brother, was the master. He could make a pile of rocks cry. It was just terrible. He was also crazy. One day, he decided to elevate his expertise and go after Mama. Now, Mama was the sweetest, most trusting person you would ever meet on this planet. And Sam, in an instant, changed all of that. One day, we were in the kitchen, around the table, doing some school projects. Mama was dressed in her pinafore dress and her frilly apron like they used to wear in the olden days. And she was mixing up some cake batter, humming to herself, do-do-do-do. Sam slips off his chair, grabs a paper bag, goes up behind her, blows it up, and boom! What ensued? It's still talked about in family gatherings and holidays. With a shriek, the bowl of batter flew into the air, almost in slow motion, and slammed into the ceiling fan. A big glop of batter hit our sleeping dog, Jasper, who woke up with a start and went skittering across the floor to his kennel, his sanctuary. Only Mama had set up the folding ironing board in front of it. Jasper slammed into that and immediately collapsed and slammed on his little tail. With a yell, he went tearing through the kitchen screen door with his ironing board trailing behind him like a tailgating transformer. Meanwhile, the ceiling fan is continuing its work, splaying batter everywhere, all over Mama and her dress, all over the stove, all over her husband, who we called Daddy. Now, Daddy had just walked into the kitchen to see what all the commotion was when, boom, a big blob of batter hit him. In fact, the batter hit everyone except Sam. Not a good thing. So Sam's face had this conflicted expression, partly surprise and delight at how neat the thing happened when he hit the bag. Boom! Wow, that was really cool. But the other side was terror when he looked in the eyes of Daddy. Dripping batter from his nose, Daddy gave Sam some negative feedback. Now, while Sam was getting in so much trouble, a strange thing happened to the rest of us kids. This is a time to celebrate, isn't it? Look at Sam! Look at Sam! But I know that he gave us pain all our lives. That he laughed at our misfortune, that we were the ones that always got in trouble, not Sam. Yet here he was getting it, and we didn't feel like celebrating. We felt bad for Sam. And we discovered that Sam had something that the rest of us had yet to achieve. Chutzpah, courage, audacity. The audacity to follow one's actions. Even though he got in trouble, this was the stuff of legends. And don't we love to celebrate legends? Isn't that what we're doing tonight? Celebrating the legend of Bob and Clara Gelfand? I know, I've told you many times, that life just lays things in front of you. All you need to do is pick them up. And that's just what Bob and Clara did 40 years ago. And then because they had the audacity, the courage, and the chutzpah to create one of the most successful Toastmasters clubs ever. Ever. Gelfand, good morning. And you, tonight, had the same thing. You picked one up also because you had the character to pull an event like this together in such great joy and celebration. Now I know that Toastmasters aren't supposed to thank their audience, but heck, I'm up here and can't do anything about it. So, thank you for putting an event like this together and reminding me and reminding each other how special this whole group is collectively, how special you are individually. Thank you for including Susie and me in this wonderful celebration. And finally, thank you